Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Monday Night Football here between the Browns and the Broncos. Got my usual best bets, player prop projections for all of y'all so that you can make sure you're making the best bets available to you on Monday night. But I got to let you know right now, we are crushing it in the NBA. Up 19-4 in the last 4 days. And this is what all those wins look like to amount to about 13 units in that time period. And we are now up more than 25 after this super nice hot streak. So I want to give away some 50% offs to you guys. The first 5 people to use code SIZZLIN will have access to the VIP Discord and get 50% off that first month. Do check out the link in the description of the video to get to the WAP.com account, as you can see here, and get that VIP access with code SIZZLIN. For now, though, I have 7 player prop projections for you for Monday night. If that all sounds good, give that video a like. Let's jump right into it. Also, one more quick reminder, we have the live show every single day, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And when we get to Mondays and Thursdays, like to go over the NFL in addition to the NBA that we look at. You guys bring your bets, jump in the comments, and we go over all that stuff together as I share my screen and help you find the best value that we can. But let's get into this game here, starting with the Browns offense. It's not good. I'll just tell you that right now. 32nd in pass EPA, 24th in rush EPA for this team. It's been tough to get that run game going, even with Nick Chubb out there for this team. That's largely due to their 23rd adjusted yards before contact for their offensive line. So not getting much push. Big reason why that rush EPA and those rush yards are also down. Also, they've been trailing plenty. So that's a big reason why they're passing a bit more, even though they have the worst pass EPA, 21st in yards, nothing to be impressed by. And if you look at this Broncos defense, man, it's for real. And we've all known it now for a while. And I think too often we actually give it credit as the best pass defense or one of the best pass defenses, which is fine, but it doesn't get enough credit as one of the best run defenses as well. 3rd in adjusted yards before contact. So not really looking to take too many Broncos running backs. Obviously, Nick Chubb, the main guy here, but I would be fading that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Most importantly for Denver, they're getting a ton of pressure on the quarterback, which really helps out for their defensive secondary. They are currently 6th in pressure percentage on defense, and they are 2nd in blitz percentage. So they are blitzing a lot, but still getting a ton of pressure off of it. That should lead to some mistakes for famous Jameis. Looking like a Broncos victory, if we're being honest. Looking at this Broncos offense, man, it has trended upward tremendously. And Sean Payton is looking like the old tricky ball coach on offense that called up a lot of really interesting plays with Drew Brees. He's got Bo Nix looking like the real deal at this point. So on the season right now, they're still bottom half of the league in terms of EPA per play. But let's look at since week 5, they're up to 15th, which is right in the middle of the pack there, a little bit better for EPA per play. And the training wheels are completely off for Bo Nix. If you watch the player props video that came out for week 13 and included the Sunday games, I also threw the Monday night game in there with Bo Nix for the passing yards. We'll talk about that again, but I do think he's going to have success against this Browns defense in the pass EPA there for them. 19th, but they've been allowing a good amount of pass yards over the course of the last 3 weeks or so. I expect that to be the case for Bo Nix again. And while the Broncos offense or rushing offense is nothing to write home about, the Broncos rush defense is vulnerable, at least enough so that you'll be able to run out the clock, be able to get some time of possession on your side if you're Broncos and the Broncos offense and keep those drives going. So really liking the look of the Broncos in this game, as you can tell. I'll quickly go back over what we had with Bo Nix, 225 or more for the pass yards like that here. Like I said, training wheels off. Over in 3 of his last 5, and the unders were against some pretty good defenses in Baltimore and Kansas City on the road. But at home, this kid is a monster and has been dominating pretty bad defenses, let's call it pass defenses, as you can see Carolina and Atlanta. And that's kind of, I'm not putting the Browns up there with as bad as those defenses right now, but I just love the way that this dude's flinging the ball up to about 34 attempts per game over the course of the last 5. And like I said, really leading to this team just sort of unleashing him and being like, all right, we trust you now, including the emergence of Deshaun Bailey, who I'm not going to necessarily bet on just yet, but I love the fact that they've added another guy in the middle of the field in addition to Courtland Sutton, because up until this point, Javonte Williams is basically their second best receiver, and they're going to want to have another receiver, actual wide receiver or guy who's flanked out in the middle of the field as a receiver to be helpful, a little bit more so than just the Courtland Sutton show that we've seen recently for Knicks and company. But the other bet I wanted to give that I have not talked about and just gave out to the VIP, I think Bo Nix gets into the end zone with his legs in this one. I love the number at about 3-1 or so. If you get it, that's a really good situation for him. And it's in part because this Denver running back situation is beyond murky. We'll talk about the RBs here in just a second, but I don't know why you would trust any of them because you don't know which one's even going to get the ball. And I think if we see Nix down around the goal line, there's the likelihood that he's going to be called upon to rush one in. You look at Cleveland, this is another situation that I like to attack, where Cleveland's defense has allowed the 5th most QB rushing attempts, in part because they get so much pressure on the quarterback. yet they haven't allowed a QB rushing TD. Just kind of feels like one of these situations where we need to regress back to the mean, get to the averages here. And if you're going to give up that many rushes to QBs, one of them has to end up in the end zone. So at 3-1, definitely worth a sprinkle here for the touchdown for Nix with his legs. And I might as well bring up that I'm staying away from anybody that is coming out of the backfield for this Denver Broncos offense beyond murky. Who's getting the ball? We don't know. In the last 3 weeks, they've had a different guy act as their rushing leader. Last week against the Raiders, awful run defense. Javonte Williams had 8 rushes, couldn't even get positive yards, -2. Audric Estime had 15 yards on about 3 carries, and McLaughlin ended up being their leader. Jordan McLaughlin, 7 of those rushes for 44 yards in that game against a bad rush defense, and they still managed to win the game. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't know why you would trust anybody. If anything, I think Bo Nix is the most likely to be able to back him at least for a rushing tutty, and I don't really feel like messing with the yardage because I just don't know which guy's going to get the ball. While I like Deshaun Vele, I still think we got to back Courtland Sutton. He just keeps doing this, man. 5 games in a row now with 70+ yards, almost 10 targets per game in that time frame. And the sort of uptick in Bo Nix's usage and his efficiency and success over the last roughly like 6 to 7 weeks strongly due to Courtland Sutton. It's just no doubt about it. This man has been playing absolutely amazing on the outside, and the cornerbacks for the Browns are vulnerable for sure. I do think their pass defense is a bit worse right now than their run defense, and that's going to be a problem for a Bo Nix, Courtland Sutton pairing that has really started to trend in the right direction towards one of the best in the league, honestly. One man for the Browns that I want to kick it off with is Jerry Jeudy, because we all know he's been on a tear. You can give him the revenge narrative here if you want. Had a tough time when he was a Denver Bronco, and definitely looks like the guy that they tried to draft in the first round now that he's on the Browns, at least alongside famous Jameis. So I'm going to be going for the receptions here because we know this is a really good Broncos pass defense, but we do know also that they give up receptions. They are at least going to give you short yardage stuff a bit more. And Jerry Jeudy is going to be lined up all over the field, looking to at least he'll be lined up on the outside, but he will be running across the middle just as much as he's running on the outside, trying to get through and get open. Riley Moss, I believe, is also questionable, might not play in this one, which would be super helpful for Jeudy. But I really like the receptions more than the yards because of how well the Broncos limit yards, but they do give up the receptions, like I said. So with 9 targets to get 5 receptions, that's what he's been averaging since Jameis came aboard in the last 4 games. 6 receptions per game on those 9 targets and 95 yards to boot. So while the Denver team, like I said, 8th best in limiting receiving yards, 7th most receptions to the wide receiver. And with that tempo for Denver and how well they've been playing offense, I expect them to be able to score on this team. I do like an over in this game. And I think that the Browns will have to be passing a bit more. Negative game script maybe, but I don't think they're going to have much success at all rushing it. So they're going to be looking to the air, and this is the number 1 guy to be looking for. That said, I'm staying away from Jameis Winston yards. I actually lean to the under, even though I like the receptions for Jeudy. It's a big reason I don't want to take yards for Jeudy or even Njoku, who you might consider, at least for the receptions for Njoku, although they're up to about needing 6 over 5.5. So that's why I ended up staying away from Njoku as well. And for Jameis, like, it's just too good of a pass defense. I do think he's going to need to pass. I don't know if this is going to be as neutral or they're going to be trailing, but I do not think they're going to be winning. So I don't think that they're going to need that positive game script and the run game nearly as much, because I also don't think the run game is going to work. So you can tell I'm waffling here with Jameis, but I just can't take an over despite him probably throwing the ball 35 times or so in this one. I still don't like it against a Denver team allowing just 5.8 yards per throw, right? Or per completion, I should say. So they're 18th in terms of allowing completions, which doesn't seem that good for one of the best pass defenses, but they're 8th limiting the yards. So it's all by design, right? They're not going to give you anything above them and behind them. You're going to have to go underneath, and they're in the top 10 in terms of missed tackles for the Broncos, not missing tackles on defense. So I really like them to be able to wrap up these Browns receivers. Even if they do get some receptions, don't like them for the yards. And as you can probably tell, I'm fading Nick Chubb as well. I think anything under about 58, 57 yards for him is a really good number. In 5 games back, he's gone under in 4 of 5, and the only time he went over was last week against the Steelers, needing 20 carries to get there. And that was because they were winning, by the way, in a division game that we knew was going to be close. Seems like a pretty obvious letdown spot for them after they really brought it to at least get a win against the Steelers. Not sure that's in the cards for them, and not sure that a positive game script is in the cards for them. So I don't know how he's going to get 20 yards, or 20 carries rather, and at 3 yards per carry since he's been back. Last week it was less than 3 yards per carry against the Steelers. This week he's coming up against a team that's 5th in terms of yards per carry allowed for this Broncos rush defense, 3.8 yards per carry allowed, 3 yards per carry for Nick Chubb since he came back. overall. So I'm expecting about 3 to 3.5 yards per carry for him, which would really mean he needs 16, 17 rushes to get this number here at about 57, 58 yards. So love the under for him in a situation where his offensive line bottom 10 in terms of adjusted yards before contact. So they're seeing the defensive line really come in and get that pressure. And as I mentioned, the Broncos on defense, number 1 in adjusted yards before contact. So they're getting a ton of push. That's why I say their rush defense is underrated. And I really love them to limit Nick Chubb in this one. Once again, quick reminder that the first 5 users to jump into the WAP.com for the VIP Discord access will get, and use code SIZZLIN, as you can see here, will get 50% off their first month in the VIP Discord. Like I said, up more than 25 units in the young NBA season, and we are climbing, baby. I have a goal to get over 60. Might need to up that to about 100 for the rest of this year in the NBA. In the NFL, still up 5.5 units on the season. No blood really drawn here in week 13, as we had about a 500 record, just to be clear about that. But hope to see you guys in there and to see you in the live show here on Monday evening, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Till I see y'all then. Happy betting.